Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our continuing series on being Catholic. And this evening, we're pleased to have our former Director of Religious Education, Jean Bargiel, present on sacraments and sacramentals, in particular on Christmas and Advent months. Thank you, Jean.
All right. Alrighty, so I brought stuff with me today because when you start getting into sacraments for Catholics, you need stuff. We need things to remind us of who God is and how we experience and express our relationship with God. And what the papers that I gave you, and I guess we'll put those online too so people can have them. Just a couple of words that I think are important, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this stuff, but a couple of words that help to understand what we're doing. Is sacramentality, that idea of things being sacramental, is a particularly Catholic way of looking at life. All creation is good and points to the Creator. Not in the pagan sense of, ooh, look at that tree, it's so gorgeous. That tree must be God. Okay, look at that tree, isn't it gorgeous? That's something that God created. And I praise and adore God because He created such a wonderful thing. Does that make sense? That's kind of the whole, that difference. But all creation is good, points to the Creator. Adam and Eve's original sin affects all of us. It's part of our human condition. But Jesus sanctified all human life by His humanity. If Jesus became man, it makes being human pretty good. Jesus redeemed fallen creation by His death and resurrection. And we participate in that through the sacraments. And then we use art, we use music, we use all of those things, that stuff, to help us express who we know God to be and what our relationship with God is. I like to use I don't know how many times I had to go in on some computer program. It was like, oh, I'm going to start a talk on this. I better have the definition of a sacrament. All right, I want to talk about the other thing there. Oh, I better have a definition of a sacrament to start out with, just to make sure. So it's easy to just go in and cut and paste. There it is. But this is out of the Catechism. Sacraments are efficacious signs of grace. We like big words, so we say efficacious, not effective. Instituted by Christ, entrusted to the Church, by which divine life is dispensed to us. I brought my dispenser this time. That's my dispenser. Because that was my original, when I first read it like this and was thinking of presenting to someone, dispensed, divine life is dispensed to us. And I had this vision, this is going to be hard. Okay, here's your little bit of grace. Here's your little bit of grace. And, oh, sorry, you don't get me. Here's your. You're going to need two. Okay, I'm just going to give you a little bit more. And I was like, that can't be right. That's not the sense of dispense to us. And what I've come to understand about that is that God is so much more than we are, and that we can even comprehend. That the Church gives us these little bits of grace that we can absorb. We can be like, oh, baptism, water, cleansing. Okay, I can do that. I can get that one in my head, you know. And little by little, we get a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit better understanding of each one of the sacraments. So that's and since this isn't just about sacraments, but that's it. But they bear fruit in those who receive them or the required dispositions, and therefore we have sacramentals. Sacramentals are the things that are instituted by the Church. They're sacred signs. They're not effective in the same way that sacraments are. They're not giving us that grace that the sacraments have. But they prepare us to receive the grace of the sacraments. They prepare us to be open to that. So praying the rosary, receiving blessings, had to look up some of this just to make sure I had the terminology right in my head. As sacramentals relate more to the liturgy, so a difference between the blessing of the altar, that Bishop Thomas came and it was a huge ceremony, well, that was a sacramental. That was that blessing. Okay, it is different than maybe I'm going to bless my children when they go to sleep, or my grandchildren now when they go to sleep. I just don't walk up to my adult children and bless them. I should, but I don't. Mike and I were talking before this all began that working for the church, there's a lot of things we know what we should be doing. We don't necessarily do it all the time. So in addition to the liturgy, in addition to the sacraments, Christian life is nourished by various forms of popular piety. And these are some examples of popular piety, some of the things that we do in our homes that help us open up our lives to the sacraments. And they're all pretty good things that we do. So, since we have a small group, even if we had a big group, I was going to do this, what are some of the things that you do or would like to do in your homes, especially during Advent and Christmas time, that you're like, oh, let's talk about that one. There's something that we do that I would really like, some things that speak to you. Thoughts? Pam?
I don't know why, but I'm so drawn to the fresh.
Okay.
And I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
I collect them.
So did my mother. So we have a lot in our attic. And this is some pieces of ones that she gave us when we got married, and some other ones that we found and incorporated, and there's still more in the house. Yeah, no, I'm very drawn to that. And we'll talk about it a little bit more. Anything else that's really, this is something that we do, or maybe this is something that I know other people do and I don't really get it. Mike?
Advent calendars.
Advent calendars, okay. I have a love-hate relationship with Advent calendars, because there's so many different kinds. There's the ones that, I'm sorry, they're probably very, very effective for some people, but they fill me with guilt, because they're like, here on the first Sunday of Advent you should do this, and on the second day of Advent on Monday you should do this, and then you should do this, and you should do this, and I'm not going to get to it, okay? And that's not helpful to me. The other kinds are more like this, but you end up destroying a beautiful picture by the time you get to Christmas. I'm like, I have a problem with that one too. So that's why when I found this, I got it, and it's reusable, so I don't have to buy one every year. But it's artwork, Madonna and child artwork, that is just gorgeous. And if you're here and you want to take a look at it afterwards, feel free. But every day, I left the 7th on because I was going to pull it up today. Here, where's the 7th? I think it's one of the ones that fell off. But you just pop the picture off, and there's another great piece of art that gives us a little bit more to think about the Christ child. Say the Advent wreath is probably the thing that's most common and comfortable. We do use it in church, but it's really a home thing. It's comes out of that tradition in the northern climes of bringing a wagon wheel inside and hanging some lights on it because it's going to be really dark in the winter, and that letting the light go. There are a couple of different traditions of what the different candles stand for. I think the most common one that people use around here and that I hear frequently is that the first candle is peace, the second candle is, no, first candle is hope, then peace, then joy is always the pink candle, but I don't have a pink candle this year, and then the last one is love, the one that's closest to Jesus is love. I'm like, I can remember which goes. At the beginning, we're doing hope, and then we get all the way around to love. I tend to think of the Advent season as, when you look at the whole liturgical year and how that all works together, is that Advent season from first Sunday of Advent to Christmas itself is the time when we're entering into and remembering and being part of that whole longing between Adam and Eve and that original fall, original sin, and the fulfillment of the promise of a Savior. So we play pretty fast and loose with time. We get all of that in 4 Sundays. Maybe it's 4 weeks if Christmas is on a Sunday, but it's not very long. But we get that whole time. And because of that, we get that sense of longing, that sense of, I want God to be in my life. And yes, it's a penitential season, but I think more so than Lent, it's that longing season. It's that, I want to be close to God. What do I have to do to be close to God? So in that sense, yes, very penitential, because you're looking at how am I not connecting with God? How can I connect better with God? So you're doing that in examination, but then it's that longing for God. Years ago, I saw it written as the whole church being pregnant, and the last month of pregnancy, when you're just like, come on, baby, let's do something about this. Let's be here, and that whole sense of anticipation. So you've got the hope, and you've got the joy, and you've got that sense of peace and love. That's Advent. That's Advent. The candles, whether you call them prophecy or hope or whatever names you give them, it's that growing light. It's like, okay, you get that one candle in the darkness, it's going to make a difference. You get 2, it's going to make more of a difference. You get up to 4, it's going to make even more of a difference. So how can we be more like that light that's going out into the world? When our kids were little, the prayer that we used, and Amy and I were just talking about it the other day, and she's like, do you remember that? I'm like, thank you, God, for sending Jesus to be our friend. We love you, Jesus. We want to be like you. Help us to love each other as we get ready for your birthday. She's like, yeah, that's it. So she has that copied out and is with their Advent wreath on their dining room table, and they're using it at home now. So I find also a lot of that connection, that community connection, family connection happens during Advent and Christmas. And especially because Christmas is going to be so different this year. You know, it's just going to be different. We're not going to be able to gather as much as we have in the past. We're not going to be able to gather as many people here at church all at once as we have in the past. How are we going to reconnect with those things? When we first started talking about this, and Father Tom and Mike were saying, you know, we're going to do this series. Would you be willing to talk about something? Sure. Here's some things that I think. Here's some things they think. Whatever. How about Advent and Christmas? Oh, that'd be great. About the time that we did this, which would have been probably in September, we were watching Family Feud. And the question was, what is the holiday that you dread the most? And the vast majority of their 100 people surveyed said Christmas. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. So I wonder what 100 people they asked. You know, where did they live? What was their life like? Why did they dread Christmas? And I know why people dread Christmas, because there's a lot of expectation on how things are going to be. But I always find the best antidote to dreading Christmas is to try and have a fruitful Advent. Trying to observe a fruitful Advent. And if you don't get your candles out until the second Sunday of Advent, that's okay. It'll be all right. If you don't take the Advent calendar out of the bottom of the drawer until today, it'll be all right. It's okay. It's easing yourself into doing to have the fruitful Advent. I picked them up somewhere. We've offered for years at St. Al's the little blue books as a daily reflection, something to hold on to, read together, read every day. For a long time, we kept it in the bathroom because that was the place you could get quiet. Another one, my kids who have kids now say, you know, how did you do that? Did we do that? Did we do that? And more I've been thinking, I was like, you know, and it just occurred to me when we had kids there over Thanksgiving. I'm like, do you remember we had a little hook and eye lock on the bathroom door up high? That was why. So you can get a little privacy in the bathroom. And there's like, oh, yeah, we did that. And so that's where I kept this. Now, since it's just the two of us, we don't have to keep it in the bathroom, but we try and read it every day together. So that's something that we're doing together today. Another really fun one, if you've got little people in your lives, I think, and even, I don't know, I think it's a big thing you can do too, is the Jesse tree. Jesse trees come out of the scripture from Isaiah that said a shoot shall spring forth from the stump of Jesse. Okay, and that's going to be the family tree of Jesus. Now, I've also had people question me like, oh, well, you don't know that's a family tree. And we said, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, that you looked it up on Ancestry and you found out this is, yeah, hey, look, I'm related to Jesus. And we're all related by faith to Jesus, whether we're in that direct line or not. And that's what the Jesse tree is about, especially as a catechetical tool that you're using with young children. And I do have a paper that you can pick up later if you want. This one is from Loyola Press, and it just really, it gives you the apple and the meat, gives you where the scripture references to that, the ark for Noah, Isaac, Abraham, the whole, they're all here, coming up to Mary and Joseph. So it just gives you that whole thing. And because it's got little scriptures there, you can sit down every night. And, you know, whether you're doing it with a child and introducing them to those stories, or if you're doing it as an adult and really delving into those stories, fantastic. That is wonderful to be able to do. If you can deepen that understanding of what those stories were about. Because every time we read them, even if we hear them every 3 years on Sundays or every 2 years if you're coming to daily Mass, ideally, we're not going, oh, it's that same old one, you know. Sometimes it's there's a familiarity of it. Oh, okay, this Sunday is coming up. It's going to be about such and such. But it speaks to us in a different way. It speaks to us in a different way every time we hear it. And we're like, oh, that's it. When I would do the liturgical year with the RCIA class, you know, lots of times we talk about the liturgical year as a circle, Advent, Christmas, ordinary time, Lent, Easter, ordinary time. But I had a magazine that I would get, as the Catechist magazine, and it always had it as the centerfold on, you know, during December. In order to fit it on the page, it was this ellipse, you know, the oval with it, and I was like, that is such a better thing, because yes, you go through the same thing every time, but you're in a different place. It's like a spider graph. You just kind of keep going, and yeah, you're hearing the same thing, and you're celebrating the same thing, but you keep coming back to something different. So that helps me. And that's a little bit about an Advent calendar too. You know, hopefully every time you look at it, it's a little bit different. Experience the sacrament of penance. Now ours was early this year, so if you hadn't spent a whole lot of time in that contemplation, that reflection, that longing for Jesus and figuring out, you know, where do I need to go to help fulfill that a little bit more than I am in my life, I'm sure there are other ones in the deanery that you can go to later. or you can always call Father Tom and make an arrangement, or come on one of the regular times for reconciliation. When is the Day of Grace?
December 16th.
December 16th. Yeah, so there's plenty of time, you know, between now and then. You can give a couple more weeks of time and thought. And, you know, what's it really that I want to change? What do I want to change so that I can be closer to God? That's the point of tension part of Advent. Okay, more comments. I also wanted to look at some of the Advent saints and stuff, because I have nothing against Santa Claus. I have a few things against maybe the way people use Santa Claus sometimes. I really don't like the elf, but that's okay. But I love St. Nicholas. Love St. Nicholas. As a sign of generosity, and especially as kids are, back me up on this, we never got heavy into trying to convince the kids Santa Claus was real. I think you're just running into trouble when you're trying to convince anybody that this guy in the red suit and the reindeer and the whole thing, that it's fun. But to convince people that it's real, kids that it's real, it's gonna come back and bite you. But as kids are growing out of Santa Claus, introduce them to St. Nicholas and have that thing, and that spirit of St. Nicholas continues. And now the spirit of St. Nicholas can animate you to be generous and to be loving and to pay attention to what the needs of other people are and to do what you can to help them. That's the spirit of St. Nicholas. And here we go, we all try and be a little bit of Nicholas. And then you can, especially as you've got multiple ages in the family, you get the older kids to help be little Nicholases to the younger kids. And then we never had a big painful moment of somebody going, they said Santa Claus isn't real. No, St. Nicholas, oh, okay, yeah. You know, and it just felt easier to be able to make that St. Nicholas. I have read of people who are able to have all of their Christmas baking done by St. Nicholas Day, which was yesterday. and that they have the great feast on St. Nicholas Day, and you know, there's all the sweets and the gingerbreads and the goodies, and you bless that stuff. And that's a blessing you can do at home. That's closer to the home than to the church. So that's a blessing that parents can do at home. You bless the food, and then you stick it in the freezer for Christmas. Because, as Doug knows well, you don't eat Christmas cookies during Advent. Right. Don't eat Christmas cookies during Advent. No matter when I start baking. Yes, and that comes from my upbringing. I think part of my love of Advent, my real appreciation of holding Christmas off a little bit, comes from my upbringing, which was really, I think it was mostly coincidental, because Mom didn't talk about Advent. What she talked about is we don't do Christmas until after Dad's birthday, which was December 15th. So we didn't decorate anything. She might have been making some cookies ahead, but we didn't decorate anything. We didn't, turn on the Christmas music. We didn't do anything of that sort until after Dad's birthday. And as I began to grow in my own faith and appreciate this Advent time, this is cool. The candle seasons, we light the candles and we wait, and it really resonated with me. And I thank Mom for that. Even if Doug doesn't like having to wait on Christmas cookies.
Pretty old.
And I learned to make some Advent cookies so that we would be able to have some cookies. And I do have some Advent cookies to share with you all, some St. Nicholas things here. So we'll share that before we go. The St. Nicholas Immaculate Conception is December 8th. Mary being ready to be Jesus' mother. Not her conception of Jesus in her womb. That's the Annunciation that happens in March, which happens to be 9 months before Christmas, just a month before Christmas. Even though we play fast and lose with time, we're not playing fast and lose with time at that point. But it's about Mary, and it's about Mary being saved by Jesus, by being prepared for Jesus, by being born without sin, conceived without sin. And that's December 8th. Yeah, so that's a good time also to celebrate and for families who are in the midst of the secular world where it's been Christmas since the day after Halloween. That gives us some other things to celebrate in the meantime, so we don't have to be like being Scrooge and not letting anybody celebrate. No, we're going to celebrate St. Nicholas. And then we're going to celebrate Mary as the Immaculate Conception. And with any kind of luck, if you are in a community that is available to do that, you're going to celebrate Juan Diego and Our Lady of Guadalupe on the 9th and on the 12th. Those are huge celebrations in Mexico. Was introduced to that living on the border, and actually when I did a semester in Mexico that ended around Christmas time. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, this is this is something that is new to me. This is unfamiliar. But that whole story of Our Lady appearing to Juan Diego as an Aztec princess, going into his culture and calling him to be faithful, and giving him a heck of a job to go and convince the bishop that she had spoken to him and was asking for a temple in this space. Whoa, okay. Poor little peasant Juan Diego, but he did it. He did it. And those are great examples to us. Love both of those. And as we were discussing before this began, if you can celebrate with tacos, yay. If you can't celebrate with tacos, and we don't know if our celebration with tacos is going to be able to pull off because some of our workers have been COVID exposed. We're still going to sing the songs. We're still going to honor Mary at church. Maybe everybody can drive through Taco Bell. We can't do that. Father Tom suggested Jimmy John's because Juan Diego is John James. But again, it's another time to celebrate, and it's something that popular piety that comes out of a distinct culture. And she's the patroness of the Americas, okay, of all of us. Specifically, and he is specifically for Native Americans in his person as a Native person. I wrote down his name in the Aztec and I tried to learn how to pronounce it, but I have not gotten comfortable yet. So maybe by next year I'll be able to do Juan Diego in his native language. And Our Lady of Guadalupe, love them. Great celebrations to have. St. Lucy on December 13th. Now, she was from Italy. She got to be real big up in Scandinavia. Not sure how that exactly happened, and then the stuff that I was reading preparing for this, nobody's like, yeah, she ended up there. It's like, okay. but St. Lucy is coming of light, and they make the St. Lucy buns, which are flavorful and wonderful, and the oldest daughter wears a crown with candles and brings the food to the family. Again, it's a popular piety coming out of a particular culture, and something that can speak to all of us. And I believe the first graders here do a Christmas around the world. I think it must be a first grade thing, because I know my first grade granddaughter is doing it up at All Saints. I'm pretty sure Michelle Rogers has done it for years here, and I know my mother did it when she taught first grade forever, and not in a Catholic school, but did Christmas around the world. And what are some of those traditions, and what are some of the things that we can enrich our lives with? And I think they're great. What else have we got here? That's leading up to Christmas. Those are the kind of the big ones that lead up to Christmas. Day after Christmas, St. Stephen, good King Wenceslas, the feast day after Christmas, said, hey, look, there's poor people here. There's people who need help. We're going to go out and help them. So it's a real physical, I'm going to go do something important to help people. I'm going to take this gift that I've been waiting for. I've been longing for centuries, eons, for this gift of Jesus, and now he's here. So what am I going to do with that? I'm going to celebrate Christmas. One of the things that Tam mentioned at the beginning when I asked what your, things that you did and things that you were drawn to. Mom bought us the creche. I remember it was a wedding present of our first Christmas. I think it was our first Christmas. But when she was talking to me, she said, what do you want? Now, we didn't have any children at that point, but I said, I want something that I wouldn't be afraid to let a child touch. So these are not, most of these are not delicate. They're okay for kids to touch. I said, I really want something where you get to put baby Jesus in the manger. Because so many pieces come with, baby Jesus is all one piece. So I have my baby Jesus who was separate from the manger. And so that's something on Christmas Eve you can just add to the creche. And it's like, oh yeah. Again, several years ago in church, Christmas was on a Monday, I think. So Christmas, the fourth Sunday of Advent was on the 24th. So it was fourth Sunday of Advent in the morning, it was Christmas Eve by afternoon, it was Christmas Day by Monday morning. So we had to work on how we were going to decorate for church and how we were going to make that happen. And given the setup in church at that time, which we couldn't do now because it's so much more beautiful, but we put tables up behind the altar and put out the scene there. And I remember Father Ed came up and he's like, so shouldn't the sheep and the shepherd be over there? And I was like, well, at Christmas they should. Right now they're out in the field. They have no idea what's going on. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I suppose I can see that one. They weren't ready for that yet. I'm like, yeah, I don't think they were. So, if you have a little space, I think that's a fun idea. That's a way to do it. Put the shepherds over somewhere else for a while. Now, when I put these out here tonight, and I'm going to walk out of the camera to do it, but the kings are over here on the shelf. And I was like, I'm going to forget to put it there. But now I've mentioned it to all of you, and you're going to remind me, don't leave your kings over there. And that's one that we did manage to do when the kids were little, is move them around between Christmas and Epiphany. They're on their way, they haven't made it yet. Let's journey them and be part of that journey coming up for Epiphany.
Hey, Jean,
yeah.
we have a figurine of Mary on the donkey with Joseph, and the kids take it and move it closer to the creche as it gets closer to Christmas. Okay. And then they'll put the Holy Family in the creche.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I love having the, I don't know if that's clear, but having Mary on the donkey moving toward Bethlehem, being in Bethlehem, and then having the kings come later. Yeah, those are cool. To keep that whole sense of anticipation and movement. I think those are cool things to do.
Any tricks to keeping Christmas alive between Christmas and Epiphany?
Don't sing the carols too long ahead of time. I think if you start singing Christmas carols too early, you're dead tired of them by the time, 2 days after Christmas. If you make it through New Year, yeah, maybe that's it, and then you're done. Like the radio stations, okay? But we're not the radio stations. We're trying to keep Christ alive in our hearts here, that celebration going. So, yeah, bring out the carols then. Those were a good time to sing all the carols. What we plan for when we're singing for Mass is carols during the Christmas season. Everybody knows them. Everybody wants to sing them. Got a pretty limited time when you're going to be able to sing them. Let's do them during Christmas, not during Advent. Eat up all those cookies that I made.
Yes, ma'am.
I know I don't have to twist your arm on that one. Just keep the Christmas tree up until Advent. We probably won't get ours up until the 20th. Again, that was the one growing up. We didn't put the Christmas tree up until Christmas Eve. That was my mom's tradition. And I think, and I haven't got anybody I can go back and check this with anymore, but I think what the story she told was, while they were at midnight mass, Santa Claus brought the tree. So I don't know who actually put the tree up, when they actually did that, but it was in a separate room. So maybe it was probably up, earlier than that, but Santa brought the tree while they were at mass. And then they came home and got to open one gift on Christmas Eve. And that, again, that's part of that community and the popular piety and the doing things as a family that keep those traditions alive. Did that help, sir?
Sure.
Other thoughts on how we celebrate? Did I write anything else down? Cookies we share. Christmas trees, there's a lot of stories about that. We had one of the early days in the Little Blue Book this year was St. Boniface and the fir tree. It's a little bit different than one that I had heard growing up. And I meant to bring the book of Christmas legends that is falling apart, because I read that thing to death as a kid. I just loved those Christmas legends around the world. Like where did Santa Lucia come from? And where did this come from? And St. Francis, and the angel, and the Crash at Brescio, where he went out to recreate in a cave what it must have been like, and that's where all of our artistic representations come from. It was from St. Francis, trying to kind of recreate what would it have been like in the 1200s. Yeah,
So
Tim.
gift giving start with Sacramentals?
Gift giving, actually, it goes to the Magi.
Oh.
They came bearing gifts. In popular culture, there's the bit, that if it had been three wise women, they'd have brought a casserole and whatever, and more practical gifts. But a poor family could use a little gold, I would think, to make that flight to Egypt to get started, And besides, they're more about the meaning of what those gifts are. So that giving of gifts thing's something that we do. You want it to have a little bit of meaning. It doesn't have to be the most expensive thing, the most, costly thing, as the most meaningful thing. And if you find yourself in that, I know if if I find myself in that sense where, gifts given, what am I going to do? I think, relax a little bit. What is it? What can I afford? What is reasonable for me to be able to spend on gifts? All right, I'm not going to go over that. What is meaningful for the people that I'm giving gifts to? Let's do that, and not let it be such a burden. I have to brag just a little bit, but also with the caveat, I know this is the first time in 31 years, because I know the last time this happened was before our son was born, and he just turned 31. That year I had all of my Christmas shopping done by Thanksgiving. This year, I'm still waiting for a few things to come in the mail that I've ordered online, but they're coming right now. And that gives me such a sense of, I can just enjoy Advent. I don't have to worry about, I spent this much on this one and this much on this one, and This one isn't even coming close. I have to make sure I get. No, I already did that back in October and November. So now that I'm into Advent, I'm into making trying to make my Advent meaningful, I can sit back and relax and do that. I don't have that extra pressure. You know? So maybe I'm not traveling with the wise men. I've sent things through Amazon. They're going to get there ahead of me. Other thoughts about how you celebrate, how we celebrate Advent and Christmas, and the things that we use to do that. And the greens are, you know, a good example of things that you know, bring nature into the outside, and that evergreen, Christ is ever present, doesn't die off in the winter, and bringing light and warmth and celebration through the cold winter months. You know, and is it a real coincidence that in the Northern Hemisphere we celebrate Christmas at the darkest time of the year? No, that's not coincidence. That's you know, this is when we need to celebrate and look forward to that light coming again. So the fact that we start hope at the beginning of Advent, when we're still getting darker every day, you know, that's what hope is about. Even though it's, you know, we expect that this will happen, but yeah, we're going to keep powering through. Any other thoughts?
Are there other sacramentals throughout the church year?
Oh yeah. I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately is the rosary, is a sacramental. The prayers, the beads themselves, any kind of reminders that we have.
Okay, the palms of Palm Sunday.
Palms of Palm Sunday, yes. Statues. You know, they are not graven images. They are not things that we are worshiping. They are things that remind us of either of Christ's sacrifice, like the crucifix, or that remind us of who Mary was and her humility and her willingness to, you know, to be there, of who Juan Diego was as the really poor peasant who had the courage, because Mary gave it to him, to go and speak his peace before the bishop. Those are all sacramentals.
Holy water.
Holy water, absolutely. Yes.
Holy oil.
Holy oil. Holy oils that we use in sacraments. I'm gonna look at you, Father Tom. Like the sacred chrism is more so.
It's a matter for a sacrament, so I
Okay.
would not say that is a sacrament.
A sacramental, okay.
And the same with the oil for the infirm.
Okay.
Where I think it might be a sacramental is the oil of the catechumen.
Okay.
It is used in baptism, but it's also used outside of it in preparation for the catechumens coming into the church.
Okay.
That ceremony, I guess, would be more of a sacramental.
Okay. Are you catching? Okay. That's good. Thank you. Yeah. Other things?
Are those nesting dolls I see?
They are nesting dolls they see, and this is, I got St. Nicholas here, and I have a little nativity set that is nesting. So this is the baby, and it's got Mary and Joseph, and the angel is the big one. And I have at least one grandchild who, when she comes and these will be out, she will play with these, and she will get very possessive of these. Probably more so than we really want her to be with the Holy Family, but yeah, she will definitely play with those. And those are safe for her to play with.
Now, is there any problem with that sacramental being a toy?
It's not blessed for liturgical use in the church,
Okay.
so I don't think there is. I mean, I think we need to, but where does it say? It says something in here. while carefully clarifying them in the light of faith. Okay? So we need to teach her that's the angel and Joseph and Mary and baby Jesus, and it represents them. And you probably don't want to be knocking your brother down over who gets toy with him. I think that's part of what that is. That's part of the proper disposition, teaching people how to do this, so that it leads us to Christ. That's the whole idea. Sacramentals lead us to the sacraments, in which we participate in Christ's life.
So is there a difference between blessed sacramentals and non-blessed sacramentals?
Another line that I didn't copy out of the catechism here about sacramentals was there's really no material thing with it's used properly that doesn't point us to God, that can't point us to God. So those, I think those are, I want to be careful because I don't want to speak any heresies, but I think those are the things that, those are common sacramentals. Those are the everyday miracle sorts of things, that we recognize, hey, this is pointing me to God. Tam and I were talking before the session about it's going to take us a long time to unpack the blessings of a situation. Yeah. Because they're happening every day. It's going to take a while to, oh, wait a minute, that was a blessing that this happened. I didn't recognize it at the time. This functioned as a sacramental for me. I didn't recognize it at the time. I think I'm safe saying those things. And I don't work anymore. Can't lose my job.
Get fired.
Other thoughts? You guys are great. I think we'll with a bigger crowd. All right, well, thank you. I think I've told you what I need to tell you, but please come up and get a little bag of cookies. There's some St. Nicholas cookies and a candy cane. And you can take a couple. This is the description of the Jesse tree and the Jesse tree thing, so if you'd like to grab that, you may grab that. If you haven't already got your little blue book, there's a couple here, and there's more over on the table. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gene.
Okay.